Welcome back, everyone, to Echoes of Ihsan. Today, we're doing something pretty cool. We're taking a deep dive into the idea of fear prayer.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, and we're specifically looking at Sahih Bukhari, book 14.
Okay.
Have you ever felt like life just throws so much at you that it's hard to stay connected, to your faith?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's a universal experience in a way.
Yeah, and that's kind of where this idea of fear prayer comes in. It's about how Islam teaches us to pray even when things feel uncertain or even dangerous. So get ready, because we're going to challenge some of those preconceived notions about what prayer has to look like.
Yeah, I think people might be surprised to learn that there's actually a framework for maintaining that connection with the divine, even in the midst of chaos.
Hmm.
It speaks to the flexibility and resilience of Islamic practices.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So for anyone who might not know, Sahih Bukhari, it's a collection of sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, and it's like a fundamental text in Islamic scholarship.
Mm.
It gives us a glimpse into the early days of Islam and offers guidance on a whole bunch of topics.
Right. And Book 14 specifically focuses on this fear prayer, giving us guidelines for Muslims praying in situations where they might be in danger.
Wow, so like actually praying in the middle of a battle.
Exactly. That's the kind of situation we're talking about. It really highlights just how important that connection to faith is, no matter what's happening around you.
Yeah, it's hard to even imagine that, but I mean, it really puts things in perspective. So to understand this better, let's jump into a specific example, Hadith 64. It tells the story of Abdullah bin Umar's experience with fear prayer during a battle in Najd.
Oh, this is a great one. It really paints a vivid picture of how fear prayer was practiced.
Okay, so set the scene for us. What did it actually look like in a real battle?
All right, so picture this. The Muslims are facing their enemy, right? The tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife. But even in this chaos, they arrange themselves in rows for prayer.
Wow, so even in the middle of a battle, they're still prioritizing prayer.
Absolutely. It shows an incredible level of commitment. And here's the interesting part. One group prays with the prophet while the other group stays alert, facing the enemy with their swords ready, protecting their fellow Muslims.
Wow, that's a powerful image. It's like this carefully choreographed dance where prayer and protection are happening at the same time.
That's a great way to put it. Each movement has a double purpose, connecting with God while also ensuring the community's safety.
It really challenges our assumptions about what prayer needs to look like. Like it has to be in a specific place at a specific time, done in a certain way.
Exactly. And that leads us perfectly into Hadith 65, where Ibn Umar, a companion of the Prophet, clarifies just how flexible fear prayer can be, not just in terms of when you pray, but even the posture.
Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting. Tell me more about this flexibility and posture.
So Ibn Umar explains that when Muslims are outnumbered, they're actually allowed to pray while standing or even riding.
Wait, praying while writing.
Yeah. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it. It's a major shift from the usual way of praying, which involves standing, bowing, and prostrating.
I would have never thought of that. It really makes you think about how adaptable prayer can be.
And this adaptability comes from a core principle in Islam, removing hardship when it comes to practicing faith. Islam emphasizes ease and compassion, recognizing that life doesn't always go according to plan.
So it's about prioritizing that connection with God, even if it means adjusting the outward form of prayer.
You got it. It's not about being rigid, but about understanding the situation and finding a way to maintain that essential connection.
That makes a lot of sense. And it highlights something really important. Islam's focus on practicality and understanding, especially in tough situations.
Absolutely. Even in the midst of conflict, the goal is to make prayer possible, not to burden people with impossible demands.
Yeah, it's like that saying, God doesn't burden a soul beyond what it can bear. It's about recognizing our human limitations and providing solutions so we can stay connected spiritually without compromising our well-being.
Exactly. And this brings us to another fascinating dimension of fear prayer, the importance of community support. Let's take a look at Hadith 66, which shows us a really vivid scene of this communal aspect.
Okay, I'm curious. Tell me more about this account. It seems like the idea of community plays a big role in how fear prayer works.
So this hadith describes a scenario where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, led fear prayer with groups taking turns. This ensured that there was always prayer happening and that everyone was protected.
Oh, wow. So it's like they were watching out for each other even while praying.
Exactly. Imagine this. The Prophet's leading the prayer, and as one group finishes part of it, they seamlessly transition to guarding their fellow Muslims while another group steps up to continue praying.
That's amazing. Such a powerful picture of unity and shared responsibility. They're not just praying for themselves, but for the whole community.
Exactly. It really shows the strength and interconnectedness of the Muslim community. This idea of supporting each other and being responsible for one another is so deeply rooted in Islamic teachings.
It's almost like the act of prayer itself becomes this shield, a source of strength and unity when they're facing danger. It reminds you that even when things are tough, you're not alone. And you can find strength in that connection to something bigger than yourself and the support of your community.
That's beautifully put. And it's remarkable, this principle of adapting prayer to challenging circumstances, it goes beyond the battlefield. We're going to see in the next hadith how this idea applies to situations that aren't necessarily dangerous, but still present obstacles to praying in the usual way.
I am intrigued. It seems like fear prayer is more than just a set of rules for wartime. It's a whole philosophy, a way of approaching life's challenges with flexibility and resilience while staying true to your faith.
You hit the nail on the head. Fear prayer has so many lessons that we can apply to our lives today, no matter what challenges we're facing.
And I'm excited to explore those connections further because it seems like there's a lot we can learn from this concept of fear prayer, even if we've never been in a literal battle.
Absolutely. And in the next part of our deep dive, we'll delve into how these principles can apply to the challenges and uncertainties we all face in the modern world. So stay tuned.
I can't wait to hear more about that. Welcome back to Echoes of Ihsan. We're continuing our exploration of fear prayer, and I have to say my understanding of prayer has really shifted. It's not just about rituals, but about keeping that connection with the divine, no matter what's going on in our lives.
You got it. And as we move beyond the battlefield setting, let's look at Hadith 67. This one might seem a little out of place at first, but it actually helps us understand a broader application of these fear prayer principles.
Okay, I'm ready for this curveball. What's Hadith 67 all about?
It tells the story of the Prophet Muhammad and Umar missing the Asr prayer because of the Battle of the Trench, a really crucial event in Islamic history.
Hold on, how does missing a prayer connect to fear prayer? It seems like the opposite, right?
I know, right? It seems counterintuitive. But trust me, there's a deeper meaning here. This hadith shows us that the flexibility of fear prayer, it goes beyond physical combat. It applies to any situation where unexpected circumstances might make it hard to pray in the usual way.
So like even in a situation as intense as the Battle of the Trench, where survival is at stake.
Exactly. Imagine the intensity of that moment, a life or death struggle for the entire Muslim community. In those kinds of situations, prioritizing survival and strategic action becomes the most important thing.
So even though prayer is important, the Prophet's actions show us that fulfilling religious obligations shouldn't come at the cost of safety or well-being.
Precisely. It's a powerful message about understanding priorities in those critical moments.
It really reinforces the idea that Islam is a religion of understanding, compassion, and practicality. It's not about blindly following rules.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that life is complex and making decisions that consider both our spiritual and worldly well-being.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Sometimes we get so caught up in the shoulds and musts of religion that we forget there's a deeper wisdom at play. It's about finding that balance between upholding our faith and acknowledging the realities of being human.
That's such a key insight. This idea of adapting to circumstances without compromising the core of our faith is such a powerful lesson. It resonates across time and applies to so many different situations, It's recognizing that life throws curveballs and our faith should help us navigate those challenges with grace and wisdom.
It's like fear prayer is giving us a toolbox of spiritual tools to handle the unexpected. Like being prepared for anything, knowing that we can maintain our connection with the divine even when things get messy.
I love that analogy. A spiritual Swiss Army knife, ready for anything.
Mm-hmm.
And this concept of adapting to circumstances, it can be applied to so many aspects of modern life.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, think about all the pressures we face today. Work deadlines, family obligations, the constant stream of information. It's easy to feel overwhelmed and lose touch with our spiritual center.
And it's in those moments that we can draw inspiration from fear prayer. It reminds us that we don't have to abandon our faith when things get tough. We can find ways to adapt, to persevere, and hold on to that connection with our values and beliefs, even when everything feels chaotic.
So say someone's super stressed at work, and they just can't find the time for their usual prayer routine. What would fear prayer suggest they do?
Fear prayer encourages them to find a way to connect with the divine that works within their current limitations. Maybe it's taking a few moments for mindful breathing or reflecting on a meaningful verse or just offering a silent prayer in their heart. The key is to remember that connection is always possible, even if the way we pray has to change.
That's so reassuring. It's like saying, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. If you can't pray in the ideal way, find a way that works for you in that moment. What matters is the intention, the sincerity of the heart.
Exactly. And that brings us back to that principle of ease we discussed earlier. Islam isn't about burdening people with impossible demands. It's about recognizing our human limitations and offering solutions so we can maintain our spiritual connection without sacrificing our well-being.
And it's not just about individual resilience, is it? We talked about community support earlier. How does that play into fear prayer in today's world?
Such an important point. Those hadiths really emphasize the importance of community, especially when times are hard. Remember that image of Muslims protecting each other during prayer. It's a reminder that we don't have to go through our struggles alone. We can draw strength from our connections with others.
In today's world, where individualism is so strong, it's easy to forget the power of community. But when we face challenges, it's the support systems, our families, friends, faith communities that help us get through them.
Absolutely. Just like those Muslims relied on each other for protection and encouragement, we can find strength in connecting with others. Whether it's lending an ear, a helping hand, or just being there for someone who's struggling, we can embody the principles of fear prayer in our daily lives.
It's like creating this safety net of support for one another. Knowing that you're not alone, that someone's got your back, can make a huge difference when you're facing life's challenges.
And speaking of challenges, let's go back to Hadith 67, where the Prophet and Umar missed the Asr prayer. It's not just about adapting to physical danger, but also recognizing that sometimes life throws curveballs that require us to shift our priorities.
It's like it's okay to acknowledge our limits, to give ourselves permission to step back from certain obligations when we need to. It's not about abandoning our faith, but finding a way to honor it that fits our circumstances.
Exactly. Imagine a single parent working 2 jobs just to make ends meet. They might not always be able to pray at the specific times, but that doesn't make their faith or connection with God any less. It's about finding those moments of connection within the busyness of life, even if it looks different than the ideal.
It's realizing that sometimes the most genuine way to express our faith is simply by doing our best with what we have in that moment. It's about intention, not perfection.
Beautifully put. And this principle of flexibility, it extends beyond just rituals, you know? It can guide our ethical decision-making too. Just like the Prophet and Umar prioritized safety over performing the prayer in the ideal way, we can also use our judgment to decide what's the most ethical thing to do in tough situations, even if it means going against the norm.
So it's not about blindly following rules. It's about using wisdom and compassion to make choices that match our values, even when there's no easy answer.
Exactly. It's recognizing that life is full of gray areas, and sometimes the most ethical choice requires us to adapt, to be flexible, and put the well-being of ourselves and others first.
This really speaks to me. It's about moving beyond a strict rule-based approach to faith and embracing a more nuanced, compassionate understanding of what it truly means to live a spiritual life.
And that's the beauty of fear prayer. It's not just rules for praying in tough situations. It's a way of life approaching challenges with resilience, flexibility, and an unbreakable connection with the divine.
It's like fear prayer saying, hey, life is going to throw curveballs.
Yeah.
But you've got this. You have the tools, the strength, and the support you need to get through those challenges and come out stronger on the other side.
I love that. It's a message of hope, empowerment, and unwavering faith in the human spirit's ability to overcome anything. And in the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore how this concept of fear prayer can inspire us to live more meaningful and fulfilling lives.
I can't wait for that. It seems like fear prayer isn't just about surviving tough times. It's about thriving in them, finding meaning and purpose in the midst of chaos.
That's exactly what we're going to explore, so stay tuned.
Welcome back to Echoes of Ihsan. We've spent this episode unpacking this idea of fear prayer and how it applies to so much more than just literal battles. You know, those moments in life where your connection with the divine is challenged.
Right, exactly. And that's where this concept becomes really powerful, I think, because it's all about aligning our actions with our values even when things get tough.
So it's not just about changing how we pray when things are chaotic. It's about a whole different way of living, bringing that same resilience and purpose to everything we do.
You got it. Imagine if we could approach every aspect of our lives with that same intentionality, as if our connection with the divine is woven into everything we do. That's what fear prayer invites us to do.
So instead of thinking of our faith as something separate, we're integrating it into our work, our relationships, our creative endeavors. It becomes this guiding principle that informs everything.
Exactly. And when we live with that kind of awareness, every moment becomes a chance to express our faith, to make a difference, to really live according to our highest aspirations.
It's like taking the heart of prayer and weaving it into every part of our lives. That's got to have a huge impact on how we feel about our purpose and our sense of fulfillment.
Absolutely. We're no longer just going through the motions. Every choice, every action becomes a way of connecting with the divine and expressing those deep values.
This makes me think of the idea of Ihsan in Islam. It's all about striving for excellence and sincerity in everything we do. Like, we're always aware of God's presence, even in the simplest tasks.
That's a beautiful connection. Both Ihsan and fear prayer encourage us to be more aware, to bring that intentionality and mindfulness to every aspect of our lives.
And when we do that, our actions become so much more meaningful. It's not just about working to pay bills or going through the daily grind. It's about being part of something bigger.
Right. We talked about how fear prayer is about adaptability and resilience, but it also gives us a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And that can be incredibly empowering when it comes to making hard decisions, overcoming obstacles, or finding meaning, even when we're going through tough times.
Because when we understand why we're here, what our purpose is, it helps us push through challenges, find joy in the small things, and contribute something good to the world.
And fear prayer is there to remind us of this purpose constantly. Just like those Muslims adapted their prayers during battle, we can adapt our lives to the challenges and opportunities that come our way.
It's about flexibility, resourcefulness, and stepping outside of our comfort zones so that we can live by our values.
It's a journey, this whole idea of alignment.
Mm.
And it's an ongoing one. It takes self-reflection, honesty, and being willing to adjust our course when we get off track, you
Right.
know? It's about constantly growing and refining ourselves.
But it's worth it because it leads to a life that's full of meaning and purpose and this deep connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up our deep dive into fear prayer, I want to leave you with a few questions to think about. How can you bring these principles into your own life?
What parts of your day-to-day, your relationships, your work could be infused with more intentionality and mindfulness?
How can you adapt your spiritual practices to fit the unique challenges and opportunities you face?
Remember, the essence of fear prayer is about holding on to that unwavering connection with the divine, even when life throws you curveballs. It's about bringing your faith to life in every single moment.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of fear prayer. May it inspire you to live with more purpose, resilience, and a profound connection to the divine in everything you do.
And until next time, may your lives be filled with peace, meaning, and that transformative power of faith.